it's time to move on to the NBA here. And Zay,
Mm-hmm.
we get to this point in time. Regular season is basically over.
Yep.
Okay, after the weekend, it's done. Sunday, I believe, is the last day. And of course, on Monday, I'm looking forward to talking some playoffs,
Yep.
talking some UFC. It's going down over the weekend. And, I said to myself, we need some reflection time
Mm-hmm.
because it's been a long season, man. The NBA is a long season. There's things that happen. The season starts before the season, the off season, moves, transactions,
Mm-hmm.
subtractions, you know, and we get to this point. Some teams that you had hope for, some teams that have championship aspirations.
Mm-hmm.
We look at the standings. They're not even in the playing tournament. Okay. Or they tanking. And I came up with this question.
Okay.
What is the biggest regret of the 2022-2023 NBA season? And you know what, Zay? To me, this answer was easy.
Okay.
There was a lot of nominees, don't get me wrong. And after we give our, one, we can dive into some of those nominees that we potentially have. But to me, there's one that really, really stick out, and it's not even close to me. And that is the Mavericks letting Jalen Brunson walk. Okay. That's the biggest offseason regret to me. And the reason why is not only solely because of that move, but because of the ramifications after that and the bad decisions that happened after that. Let's not forget that the Mavericks could have got Jalen Brunson. We signed him for about, I believe, $55 million. They said, nah, we're going to gamble. He's going to bet on himself. And he did. He had a phenomenal playoffs. And then he signs with New York for $104 million. Okay. Which at the time, to most, not to me, but most people thought overpay. $104 million. That's overkill. That's overpay. When you fast forward now, it's underpay. And the Mavs could have got him for 50% off. Okay. Think about that. Then they're spiraling out of control because they realized the mistake when it happened. They knew that, oh shit, excuse my language, this guy's about to walk. Okay, he's about to go to the Knicks. They signed his father. Oh my gosh, we know we losing him. And then they just went off and did some dumb stuff. For example, they traded a first round pick and some players for Christian Wood, who immediately, I remember this, immediately Jason Kidd said he's coming off the bench. So you trade a first round pick for a guy that the coach don't even want to play? And you make that make sense to me. Make that make sense to me. You trade a first round pick. You could have got a young player. Okay, you trade a first round pick for a guy the coach immediately said, I don't want to play. His defensive limitations and all that, I don't want to play him. He's not going to play a large amount of minutes. So why did you make that deal? Then on top of that, like, damn, okay, we got some holes, right? We already had holes, but now we got even bigger holes because we let Jalen Brunson walk. So we're going to sacrifice our best perimeter defender, play no defense after this. Okay, we're going to risk Dorian Finney-Smith along with Spencer Dinwiddie for Kyrie Irving. Okay, so we can fill the Jalen Brunson role. Okay, Kyrie Irving is going to be a free agent. We do know that, right? We do know Kyrie Irving does what Kyrie Irving wants, with all due respect, and I love the dude. But if Kyrie Irving don't want to do it, he ain't doing it. And he showed you that when he said, you know what, basketball, I'm put you to the side for a little bit. So if he wants to leave, he will leave. Okay? Now, you do have the upper hand here to keep him. Don't get me wrong. I'm not blaming him for the mistakes. It's not him. Okay? It's before him. But you kept on stabbing the wound. You kept on stabbing the wound and digging yourself into a bigger hole than you already dug when you let that guy, Jalen Brunson, come to my New York Knicks. And look what he's done for my New York Knicks. Let's talk about it from the flip side, right? Because Tim Hardaway Sr. came out yesterday and said there's no leadership here. Okay, what are we doing here? Look at Luka Doncic. Is he a leader? Look at Kyrie Irving. Is he a leader? Okay, Jalen Brunson is clearly a leader. He was the leader of that Mavericks team. And he came to my New York Knicks, and his leadership literally transformed the culture of the New York Knicks. We have the same players we had last year, okay, prior to, Jalen Brunson. We had a coach in Tom Thibodeau. I remember walking into the city earlier this year, way earlier this year, and I showed the picture in the chat. I see all over the trains, Fire Tom Thibodeau. Okay, and yet there's a new infectious energy. Everybody want to play hard now because of Jalen Brunson. I understand he's a below average defender, similar to Kyrie and Luka, but the effort, that's leadership. Leadership is not only scoring. Leadership is trying to play defense. And that's what Jalen Brunson is doing for us. And right now, we are going to make the playoffs. Okay, we are going to be the 5 seed. And a lot of people said, even with Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell, we wasn't even going to be the 5 seed. We was going to be the 6 seed at best. At best. So basically, translation, even with Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson, we are going to be a playing team. And yet, we didn't get no Donovan Mitchell. We got Jalen Brunson. Oh, overpay. We overpaid for Jalen Brunson. Okay. And now we are the 5 seed. And now the Mavericks are going to be chilling on Reggie Bullock's new island. Make it make sense. That's the one for me.
That was a great take. I obviously agree with you. I feel like the Mavericks should have kept Jalen Brunson. They could have paid him an extension prior to any deal that was on the table. He wanted that 4-year extension. They never offered it to him. During the season before he was available. And they never offered him an extension, and that's when the price went up, and he wanted top dollar. And they knew the Knicks were looking for a point guard. It wasn't a mystery. Everyone knew the Knicks needed a point guard, and Brunson made that executive decision. All right, if they don't want me here, I know someone who's gonna want me somewhere else. And Leon Rose taking over the Knicks only, set the tractions in place. They could probably even put a bug in his ear, like, hey, the Mavericks don't offer you a deal too good. Don't worry, we're gonna make sure you get a deal as soon as your contract is up. So, there was a lot of different things that probably went into motion. Nobody knows for sure regarding the information, but lo and behold, Brunson's a Knick, and he is doing wonders for the team, and I appreciate him ever since he became. I was definitely a doubter early on because me and my friends, we went on a list on how many point guards in the league, starting guards, at the time of the signing that compared him, the starting point guard, to Brunson. And we made it a list that like probably 17 point guards at the time looked and appeared better than Brunson prior to him ever starting a game for the Knicks. He came in, changed my mind immediately. I just seen a different aspect of his game the first 10 games in. I saw a way different player than what I saw in the Dallas Mavericks. And again, I'm glad I was wrong. I'm glad the Knicks are here. And shout out to the Knicks for making the 5th seed. But I have one biggest regret of the 2022-2023 NBA season, and this is fairly close to your Mavericks take. For me, I think we've talked about this many times, and this is a team that does not want to tank for whatever reason. They feel like if they try to keep bringing these subpar players around this kid, that there's going to be a championship caliber team. It's going to be a deep playoff push team, and they haven't gotten it right since he's been drafted here. And this team is the Portland Trailblazers. The Portland Trailblazers' biggest regret is not trading Damian Lillard during the offseason. They had every ample opportunity to recoup assets to allow Anthony Simons to be the star player of this team, the star scorer of this team, bring in a youth movement with top draft picks, and rebuild this franchise from the bottom up, and they continue to drop the ball. Damian Lillard is not getting any younger. He's only getting older, and now the need for his services are dwindling on a year-to-year basis. More teams have guards more than ever. You can't look for a team that's going to look at Damian Lillard and say, hey, we'll trade you De'Aaron Fox this year for Damian Lillard, or we'll give you this many assets for Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard last offseason would have gave you an abundance of picks for their future. Your future would have been set with a Damian Lillard trade. Now, that asking price last year cannot be asking price this year. It's going to be way down. But last year, you probably could have got the same thing as Donovan Mitchell, the same thing that Rudy Gobert got. Damian Lillard, now as great as he is, the asking price is no longer there. No, they don't need him as much as you thought. The only way you can recoup something is if Boston says, hey, we'll give you Jaylen Brown and X, Y, and Z for Damian Lillard. It's not going to be draft picks for the future. It's not going to be picks for days, picks for a lifetime. You're only going to get a player or something that may not even stay there in Portland. That you have to look at your future. And I think Portland has done a horrific job replacing guys around Damian Lillard, and now they're doing a horrific job trying to find a suitor for him because all they're doing is keep re-signing this kid, keep giving him extension. We're going to be better, don't worry, extension, and you're never getting better. You're one of the worst teams in the Western Conference on a year-to-year basis. Now, guys are hurt on Portland. You can't knock that, but guys are always hurt on Portland, and that's something you have to see. Damian Lillard has been hurt every single year. It's not like he's been healthy. He hasn't played 82 games every year. He's been hurt every single season. So if you're seeing that, you have to think, all right, maybe we should move this kid and move on from him. Because as talented as he is, we're not winning nothing. You have to make that executive decision. Like, all right, we're going to suck for a few years, but we're going to recoup top-end talents. And that's something that the Portland Trailblazers completely avoided year to year. They moved CJ McCollum way too early. They moved him, didn't recoup anybody similar to him because they already had Anthony Simons on the bench. They upgraded Anthony Simons. Now he's super talented. What, now you're going to move Anthony Simons next? Like, it doesn't make any sense what you're doing. It's time for the Portland Trailblazers to really do something and hope in that some team out there is going to give an abundance of assets for Damian Lillard this next upcoming offseason. It's getting to the point, it's getting ridiculous. Portland's not being competitive. They're not a playoff-bound team. They're not even a play-in-bound team. At this particular juncture, the Portland Trailblazers are the inept franchise that everyone called the Knicks at one point. They're not recouping assets. They're not bringing guys around to be competitive. They're looking sorry. And that is something that you don't want to use, the word you want to use to describe a Portland Trailblazer organization. They need to do better. I understand this loyalty thing. Oh, we're paying him. We love him, yada, yada. You're not winning games. You're not doing anything. You're both hurting each other because his age is only getting older. He's not winning a championship, and then you're not winning anything. So you're hurting each other. Get rid of it. Rip the Band-Aid off. Trade Damian Lillard. Recoup the assets. And that is the biggest regret to me for the 2022-2023 NBA season.
I mean, look, man, I like this topic. I really like this topic. That take right there, if I could respond to that, I thought it was a very good take. The Trailblazers, I feel like if they were to trade Dame, and, as an organization, obviously, you got to do what's best for team, right? If there's anybody that needs to care more about team the most, is you. Not the player. Yes, the player, you would love the player to care about the team. But in this NBA, it's not happening. It's the organization. The organization kind of has to do right by the organization more so than the player, because the player one day could wake up and say, yeah, I'm out. You could do everything for some of these players. The Rockets, similar to Durant with the Nets, the Rockets and James Harden, they did everything for James Harden. Gave him anybody he wanted. Russell Westbrook, fine. CP3, fine. And still couldn't get it done. He woke up one day and said, I'm going to act up. I'm going to show up overweight because I want you to trade me. Okay, John Wall, all them guys, they've been throwing pieces at him to play with, and he just woke up, I'm out of here. So in a way, I can see where you're coming from, because Dame could be preaching this loyalty thing, riding out, so far he has, and wake up one day and say, you know what, I want out. And when that time comes, is there going to be a market for him? If you reflect back and flash back a couple years prior, when you traded CJ, you probably should have traded him along with him. To be honest with you, that's what you should have did. A full rebuild. You can't do half a rebuild. That don't make sense to me. I never liked the half rebuilds. I like the full rebuilds, or don't try to rebuild. Contend, right? Don't go in between. And I think that was an in between move. The trade one of the core guys basically half rebuild and not a full rebuild. That right there, you was never going to do nothing from that move right there. And then you reflect back to the 2017 draft. I believe they passed up on Donovan Mitchell and Bam Adebayo. They drafted Zach Collins. And the reason why they passed up on Bam Adebayo and Donovan Mitchell was because they had CJ McCollum, who they ended up trading, okay, for the guys they traded him for, when they could have had Mitchell and drafted Mitchell. And they had Nurkic, who they wanted to get rid of now. They want to get rid of Nurkic. And they could have had Bam. So when I open my eyes, and I ignore this loyalty thing because of my agenda against ring culture, don't get me wrong. When you have an agenda and you speak takes, you can kind of mess yourself up in a way because you're focusing on your point that you're trying to make. And that's what I've been trying to focus on. Where is I hate this ring culture, that, and I like to see a little bit loyalty. So anytime I see loyalty, even if it's loyalty that really shouldn't be, I'll take it. But this right here, yes, I agree. The Trailblazers should have traded Dame before they gave him that contract extension. Now, I believe he's making supermax money. And now, not only do you have to trade him and need him, you have to have a need for him, at point guard, but then you got to pay him. And now he's getting older, more injuries. He had the abdominal strain last year that shut down the season. I don't know if you can get off of that contract. To be honest with you, I don't think that we are going to see a trade because there's no need.
Real quick, before we move on, I want to ask you, what are some of the honorable mentions that you had regarding the biggest regret of 2022-2023?
Yes, I had one that stood out. Listen, my number one was my number one. And this one that I'm about to bring up, it was a far away number two. I knew in my head where I wanted to go. But this one right here, I also thought it could have been very regretful. We have to talk about the Brooklyn Nets and that whole carousel of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Why wouldn't we bring up that topic in this topic with all the drama that happened as a result of the Kyrie Irving Kevin Durant experiment? We have to talk about it. And I think for me, the biggest regret would be them not trading Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in the summertime prior to this year. Because, that's where other teams are more desperate, and will make a move. For example, you reflect back to the Boston package that Boston gave Brooklyn when they offered Jalen Brown, who just came off a finals appearance, arguably was the best player on Boston in the finals. I always felt he was in that series in particular. And they offered Jalen Brown. They offered Derek White. They also offered a pick. Now, obviously, that's not enough for a guy like Kevin Durant. We know that clearly. But I felt at that time Brooklyn didn't embrace that rebuild. They didn't embrace, all right, we're going to move off of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. So the Celtics just threw up something because they knew they're not going to trade Kevin Durant. So let's just offer them that little package. And I felt if the Nets showed an willingness to embrace Kevin Durant and life after Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, Boston would have offered more draft compensation for them to get a very good basketball player in Jalen Brown, some role players, and some picks that they could have built. Because right now, when you look at them, they are in the playoffs. They're going to the playoffs. They're going to get bounced in the playoffs. At least with that package, you would have gave yourself a better shot while still adding young pieces to the team to help contribute to the team and still be relevant. And I'm not saying by any means that the package that they ended up with Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson is not a good package. It is, but I feel like they boxed themselves in. They traded Kevin Durant last minute, literally with 2 days left in the trade deadline. That trade, I thought that trade couldn't get done because of the caliber player Kevin Durant is. I didn't even think it was possible to get a trade done like this when you see Rudy Gobert go for 5 picks. When you see all them guys, that really don't impact the team like that, go for that much. Donovan Mitchell, not saying he doesn't impact the team, but he went for a lot. I'm like, what is Kevin Durant going for? And yet, they managed to do that trade in 2 days. That seems like a rush job to me. You was better off doing that deal in the summer and having other bidders, because there's a fascination part of it. What other teams, if they knew Kevin Durant was available, would have jumped on that and offered? Now you have the choice of a package. Yes, you probably would have still ended up with the same package you ended up with, but maybe somebody sweetened the pot. So I thought they should have did that deal in the summertime, or they could have waited and do that deal this summer. And that's the biggest regret for me, my number two.
That's an interesting take as well because the Nets had the opportunity to trade Kevin Durant to the Suns. It seemed like a similar package in the offseason when he actually requested a trade. And instead, they went backwards. They traded their first-round pick to, what was it, Minnesota, I think? Or, no, Utah, excuse me. They traded their first-round pick to Utah for Royce O'Neal. And then they were supposed to be like, oh, they're competing. things went downhill, and then they still wind up trading Kevin Durant to the Suns for, I think, a similar package than what they would have gotten before that. And in the off season, I think that's something that's very weird. I think that's the Nets did a disservice to Kevin Durant. Not even Kevin Durant, their organization for doing so. I think they could have easily had a fresh season with Michael Bridges and the young talent they would have gotten in the off season if they would have traded Kevin Durant over there. And then also they could have easily moved Kyrie Irving for a package probably better than what they got from the Dallas Mavericks prior to the season before season started. So I think they did a disservice to themselves. Absolutely, I think that is a big regret. The other regret I had, you briefly talked about it, Rudy Gobert to the Timberwolves. I do not agree with any team paying $500 million to two bigs that don't impact winning basketball. It doesn't make sense to me. Cat, as good as he is offensively, does not have a winning basketball mentality. He don't win basketball games. He's a talented brother. We all know that. At the 5, he is one of the better, if not arguably one of the best centers, offensive-minded centers the league has ever seen. He don't impact winning basketball games. And people say, oh, but who did he have around him? It don't matter who he had around him. He don't impact the game. He don't win. Even when he's healthy, even when he had D'Lo and Anthony Edwards and Patrick Beverley, they didn't win basketball games. The man does not compete at a high level every single game. Sometimes he shuts out. Sometimes he's not there. And I don't know what's going on, but he's not present in the game. There's games where he's going up for 40, 34 in the game, 10 threes, 9 threes, whatever. And then the next game, he has 8 points on 5 shot attempts in 25, 30 minutes of play. It doesn't make sense. What is going on here? And then you add in Rudy Gobert, who's offensive depleted. He don't know an offensive game. He don't know how to score outside of just dunking the ball and grabbing an offensive rebound. And then the brothers going to go on a press conference talking about, I came here to win championships. What are you talking about? Came here to win championships. You don't impact a team like that. You don't impact winning like that. You was getting cooked up in the paint where you're supposed to be the rim protector against Jalen Brunson in the playoffs. What are you talking about? You want to you're going for the championship. We're not trying to hear that nonsense, that baloney, that fallacy, that ridiculousness. Like, I'm not trying to hear Rudy Gobert talk about that. And I just feel like for the package they put together for Rudy Gobert, they could have easily placed that package for another player. They could have easily placed that package for a position in need.
Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant. They could have got Damian Lillard with that same package. And nobody talked about that. They didn't really. You talking about Damian Lillard versus D'Angelo Russell. Dame is a way better player than D'Angelo Russell. You could have easily sent a package like that to Portland and got Dame over to your team. That package was ridiculous. 4 to 5 unprotected first-round picks, a bevy of young assets who are hungry. They're goal-driven. They're guys that are defensive-minded players that get sent over to the Utah Jazz. And look, this team, even though they're not competing anymore, at one point they were competing for a playing spot, a playoff spot in Utah Jazz with nothing but young players. So this is something that the Minnesota Timberwolves, they did not do a due diligence of what they actually needed. They brought in a rim protector when their center, Karl-Anthony Towns, got moved to a power forward spot when they played their best when he was at the center position because you spaced the floor. It was just a horrible move for that Minnesota Timberwolves team. I didn't see why they felt the need to trade all those assets, all those young perimeter players that were balling for them for Rudy Gobert. When you saw what Rudy Gobert is, you see what he's capped at, and you see what type of basketball game he plays on offense. He is a ball stopper. He doesn't help the game go. He doesn't help the team strive on offense. And then the top of that, the Timberwolves were not that terrible on defense that you needed Rudy Gobert's services. You could have even traded for Miles Turner if you felt like you needed a rim protector. It just didn't seem that Rudy Gobert, despite him winning those Defensive Player of the Years, he does not impact the game as much as people think he does. And everyone uses the advanced metrics to say how great of a defender he is. But in hindsight, he's the reason why they lost a lot of games. He can't do so much. He can't do a lot of things on defense. Despite rim protection, he is a cone. You switch him onto a perimeter player, it's over. And then on the offense, he can't score the basketball. Even when he tries to go up, he gets blocked or he misses a shot in the middle of the paint. It's not a good look. And that is why, for me, that is my second biggest regret of 2022-2023 NBA season, because the Timberwolves were on the up when they made that playoff spot, when they made it competitive in that series. And then they went right back down once you traded for Rudy Gobert. You got rid of Patrick Beverley. There was so many things that you got rid of that helped your team strive, and you took it all away to go after Rudy Gobert, and now you have two centers making $500 million combined. Ridiculous.
Yes, so I'm gonna respond to that quickly, and I got one more. We might as well make it three. Okay. So to respond to the Rudy Gobert thing, obviously that was highly in consideration here. But the reason why I didn't go with that number one or number two was because when they made that deal, I already knew. Like it was just so blatant to me that that move didn't make sense when it first happened, when I first heard it. And it never made sense to me, ever. And I think when you talk about a league that is going smaller by the year, they decide to go bigger. And I just don't think there's enough space on the floor. And that's some of the issues that they have right now. So yes, I agree 100%. That should be heavily in consideration. Now, I got one more. And I'm curious to get your response before you give me one more, if you have any more. I would say the Raptors not being sellers at the trade deadline will be my number three. Listen, OG Anunoby could have went to about 5 teams during the trade deadline, and they could have got a boatload for him. You know, I'm talking about a Rudy Gobert type of package. I'm not sure how much my Knicks offered. I believe we offered 3 first-round picks. We offered him 3 first-round picks. That's a good bargain for a guy in OG Anunoby. Come on, like I'll take that in a heartbeat. With all due respect, they didn't. And you look at the Grizzlies; they could have used them. Portland could have used them clearly. There's a lot of other teams. There's teams that slip in my mind. The Mavericks could have used them. A lot of teams could have used OG Anunoby's services, and similar to Jalen Brunson in a way, not trying to compare the player, but the situation is Jalen Brunson was a guy that had a lot of potential, and we paid, at the time, a hefty price, now underpaid, obviously, as I stated in my take, for the upside. And I think OG is classified in that same bracket of a player who's improving on the offensive end. We know what he could do defensively. Do you bet on the upside that he can potentially grow into a star? And I think he could have got the Raptors could have got a lot of, package for him. Maybe Pascal Siakam. I'm pretty sure he could have went for a lot of picks. And I'm saying to myself, this team has been known as the developmental, organization, the cream of the crop in the NBA. They know how to, get these players out of factories and have them playing win now basketball, and for them not to embrace that role again that they do so well, to not try to do it again by getting these boatloads of picks and just, rebuilding, I think it's very, very, confusing to me that they were not sellers when they clearly had offers. And now you look at the standings, they are 9th in the Eastern Conference, so they basically a fringe playing team. Realistically, how far can they go? I understand they're long and lengthy, but do we really think they're going to win a 7-game series against the Bucks? Now, yeah, they could give them a run. They could steal 2 games in that series. I think so with their experience. But realistically, as I state again, how far can they go? Do we realistically think that they're going past 2 rounds in the playoffs? No, they're not. And I'll be shocked that they go past 1 round. So I think they should have been sellers. They should have got the picks they could have got for OG Anunoby, Pascal. I mean, look at Brooklyn. They could have used one of those guys. Maybe after the Kyrie Irving trade and they trying to keep Kevin Durant happy, they could have traded for a Pascal Siakam and say, all right, we got you another star alongside you to play, with you. And maybe they go after that deal, because I'm pretty sure I saw a report that they were looking to do business with the Raptors. So the fact that the Raptors were not sellers at the trade deadline this year, I think they regret it.
That's a great take. I think the Raptors had an opportunity to really have a fire sale. They wanted Van Vliet wants a new contract, and an expensive one at that. They had a shot to move him. They had a shot to move Siakam, who's having a fantastic year. OG Anunoby, another one. The price tag too high.
Trent.
Gary
I
Trent.
forgot about that guy.
Exactly. I remember. I forgot. I was making a whole big thing about Gary Trent at one point, bringing him to the Knicks in a trade deadline. It's interesting because the price tag was too high. I think there was checking the temperature of the market, and all of their players were highly sought after, but they didn't want to make the move. They didn't want to pull the trigger. And now reports are talking about Nick Nurse might be out of there. And that's gonna be interesting. So if the whole team is about to be gone, officially, then why did you wait until this offseason to make those moves? I think you could have did that in a trade deadline, but maybe those moves are going to be waited till offseason to make, probably get more luxurious packages than, as we stated before with the Kevin Durant Suns. It seemed like a rush job, and maybe that's not what they wanted to do. They wanted to have a due diligence because maybe they pulled some upsets in this playoffs before they all depart that increase the price tag. Maybe that's something that can happen. They pull some great performances. That's like, oh, this guy, I can see what he does. He can make my team. And then now the Raptors price tag goes way higher. So, Yuri knows what he's doing. The brother is Masai knows what he's doing. The brother knows the ins and outs of trade. He is literally Danny Ainge 2.0. He knows how to fleece a deal and to get the best assets back. So that's something that maybe that's in the works so far. But I got one more, and this is the last one for me. It's not on the highest scale of all the other teams, but this is something that this particular team should have done. They have a lot of young assets on their team. They have young talent. They work really well. It's just as one guy is making way too much money, and that's the Washington Wizards. The Washington Wizards should have found a way to get rid of that Bradley Beal in his contract completely. As talented as he is, his services are no longer needed on Washington. He's kind of like rotting as a player on that team, and also he's just taken away from all those young guys they have in that team. Kyle Kuzma, KP when he's healthy, Corey Kispert, one of the young stars on that team that got drafted high, and he plays shooting guard. He plays really well when he gets the minutes, but he barely gets the minutes due to the fact that Bradley Beal's out there. They have a lot of guards as it is. There's a lot, and Monte Morris, another guy who just started for the first time this year. I think the Wizards had an opportunity to really trade Bradley Beal and recoup some assets, let the young guys play and build within, especially with Wes Unseld Jr. being a younger coach in the league. He wants to be able to show his stripes, and he can't do that with a heavy ball dominant player in Bradley Beal. I understand it's a stars league, but sometimes you have to remake stars. You have to be able to build your stars from scratch. And I think they have the talent to do so on that Washington Wizards team, but they're not letting them do it. They're not allowing Kyle Kuzma to be a number one scoring option because Bradley Beal wants to be there. Kyle Kuzma, when he was balling out with no Bradley Beal out there and no KP, he was scoring 25, 26 a game. He was balling out. He was cooking cats left and right. Now, am I saying he could average that on the daily? I don't know. But he showed us enough that he could carry a team without any other star and win basketball games at the same time. The Wizards at one point was balling out before everyone became healthy. When everybody was hurt and Kyle Kuzma was holding the reins, he was winning basketball games. And that's something that maybe they should look at moving forward. But I think Bradley Beal could have gave him some more assets to work with, some role players to build around these guys. They recoup draft picks. They get their own draft picks and keep drafting to build this team. But it seems improbable when you have a Bradley Beal type of player on the team. I said the same thing about Zach LaVine. Those two cats, as much as they could score the basketball, they don't play winning basketball. They don't assist in helping the fact that they have young talent on there that could really thrive, but they can't do so with them ball hogging and them taking control of the offense. Those two guys stop the ball completely to run an isometric system. So for me, I think the Washington Wizards not trading Bradley Beal is another big regret of 2022-2023. It's not on the scale of the Rudy Goberts, the Jalen Brunsons re-signings, and things of that nature, and playing the Dame being traded, but it's a move that could have been made that could have potentially put the Wizards in a better position that they're in right now.
And listen, man, I'm ready for the playoffs. Bring it on.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, or leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.